Hi, I'm Exesis, and this is Terra Invicta. And today we're having a look at the nose mounts, specifically the single hardpoint nose mounts. And I just wanted to use this as a baseline kind of for going forward. I'm going to test out the 2, 3, and 4 slot nose guns as well, just to see what kind of difference that makes on weapons. So yeah, we've got this design here. I've got the 10-inch cannon mounted on this one. I've just powered them with the Dumbo drive here. We get 5 APS. Doesn't really matter because all except this first design just drifts forward, so you can have whatever you want. I've also got 20 nanotube armor because I actually wanted these ships to survive, and the targeting computer. And in all cases except one, we're leaving the utility module empty. We're putting a laser engine here for one of the tests. We've also got a 40mm autocannon here, but it's set to defensive mode, which means that it only fires at projectiles, it won't fire at a ship. So just so that it doesn't interfere with the testing of the actual main weapons. And I've obviously made a table for this one too, of course. So I'll just show this one a little bit briefly here. And I've sorted this table by research points. So the easiest to acquire, of course, is at the top. You can't build ships without the tech required for the 10-inch cannon, so you kind of get that one for free. And both the 240cm IR and the light rail cannon are fairly cheap afterwards as well. They're basically going to be picking up the prerequisite text for them anyway. So we're going to test those out in combat. But let's start out here with the cannon corvette. So I've got 2 of them loaded in here. And just as before, we are fighting a surveillance destroyer. And this one does have the 2 laser batteries, which works against the kinetic weapons, as they work as point defense. Our point defense more or less can handle their mag battery. But they've only got 12 frontal armor, which is not a lot considering this game, and usually see ships sporting a lot more than that. But a lot of these ships have real trouble getting through even that. I think this is going to change quite quickly once we start looking at the bigger weapons. Because especially for the lasers, that armor just makes it so hard for them to penetrate until they get the side shots. But let's have a look at these in combat. Okay, so let's go in with these cannon ones. These are the only ones I've used a different tactic on. And all the other ones we're going to be going in at about 200 meters per second, or 201 usually. But with these I found that I need to go in as fast as possible. We've just got 2 ships, so formation doesn't matter here. And we've got the perfect setup here. We're coming in on either side of him. These have extremely short range. They have a targeting range of 250 kilometers, which is almost nothing. We do need to set intercept course here. And we'll set padlock just a little bit later, about here at the blue waypoint. I can follow one of them in here. And they need the extra velocity to make the rounds here actually count, because they only have 1.4 kilometers per second of muzzle velocity. So they have an extremely short firing window. See, they've started firing now. And let's have a look at these actually coming in here. And this should be more than enough to actually destroy it. And there we have the kill. Okay, so this time we are going in with the 240cm IR beams. And these actually have a laser engine on as well. You can do the exact same fight and substitute the laser engine for a 5th chip. I thought I'd show this one instead. Let's go in as a short wall because we want to be as concentrated as possible. And in this case we want to go in slow. I've never been able to get it to 200, but 201 is good enough. Now we are off a little bit to the side here, which actually works to our disadvantage. Because these will have a longer range to target. So it might get a little bit longer time to kill on just this one compared to the table. And you want to spawn straight across from them, obviously. Then we go in padlock, then we just drift. There's really nothing more special to do here. I'm gonna guess they're gonna be firing at this one. We can turn these off straight away. And it's basically just a waiting game here, because we are using IR. So you can see they've started firing now. And they do have a targeting range of 800 kilometers. But they've got you can see here on the damage they're doing, they're not doing a lot of damage. We've actually got a lucky hit here somewhere and managed to knock something out. Usually you don't get any kind of damage at all until you're within 300 kilometers or 200 kilometers. You can see the point defense working here, and it's actually working really well. And they do help each other out, but one of these has enough point defense to take these out at all but the closest range. And we still, if you look at the number here, you can see the 0. We're still not actually making any damage. There we started to do our first proper internal damage. But as we get closer here, we'll start to make quite a lot of damage. And we've obviously damaged enough systems here that he can't fire back at us anymore. So he's got all his weapons are knocked out. It's just a timing thing now. We just need to wait for our weapons to do enough damage to actually destroy him. And I think we're a little bit unlucky because we're just hitting his frontal armor there all the time now. And it does look like he can't turn anymore. That means we should be pushing his side armor now that we've passed him. And there we go, there's the kill with these. Now we didn't actually take any damage, so that is nice. So you can do lasers in the early game as well. You just need to put them on the nose. And you obviously need to have about double the MC that they've got. Okay, so same thing here, we're going at 201 meters per second. This time we're using green arc lasers. They are of course a little bit more powerful. No, actually quite a lot more powerful. They fire 33% faster and have better penetration. However, at this size of weapons, the penetration doesn't matter at all. Turn the vectors off here as well. And just glide in on one of these, I guess, and have a look at what's happening. Maybe we want to have the HUD up so we can actually see when they start doing damage here as well. And we started to do damage to the armor, but the armor is negating everything here. It's absorbing everything. And I've noticed from taking hits that the armor integrity doesn't actually seem to change anything from taking hits. I'm not sure if shipping has been disabled for lasers or if their lasers just are so weak that they can't ship our armor, which seems to be really weird. But something's up there anyway. And this seems to look like they're absorbing all the damage until we do enough damage to actually pierce them. And that is obviously when the armor effectiveness goes down. And these should be starting to do damage very shortly here now. We're at 200 kilometers now. We can actually slow this down a little bit. And it makes it a little bit easier to see what's happening. And there we're starting to do damage within 200 kilometers. I think we got a lucky hit on his nose laser quite early there, because it stopped firing quite some time ago. And now that we're getting really close, we're starting to rack up the damage quite fast there. Every hit is taking 4 to 7, and then it goes up to 10 once we get a little bit closer. And just at the merge, they've got a little bit of a tough time to rotate to keep their noses precisely on target, because these only have a... Actually zoom out and you can see the firing range. You can see the arc here quite clearly where it's actually able to fire. And then it's I can speed this up again. Now it's just a waiting game for us to actually destroy this one too. Obviously green arc lasers are better than the IR ones. You can do this with 3 arc IR lasers, or the 2 green ones. Didn't manage to make it with 1 UV arc laser. Then maybe the bigger ones will make a difference. I think colors don't really matter that much on these small ones. So going up the arc and getting that extra firing speed really does a big difference. And they're also a little bit more powerful. Okay, so in this fight here we're testing the light rail cannon, the first one. This is the first railgun you get in its cannon mount, obviously. We're gonna do the same thing here. We just target him. For padlock, we can turn the vectors off because we don't want to have to watch them. We'll unpause. We'll pick one of these to cruise in on. Now actually, for these ones I think it's better to watch from here so you can actually see what's happening with the point defense instead. That's the first thing that's going to happen is now he's going to start firing his laser at us. And then once we're in range for firing our railguns, he's going to start targeting the railgun slugs instead. Which obviously means that these are very safe from damage. I would say this is a safer setup than the lasers, but obviously you need more ships when you've got the light rail cannon, because this one, for whatever reason, isn't very good. It just doesn't fire fast enough, so you need to have 6 of them to overcome his point defense and get enough slugs through. You see there we got the first one launched and there's the second one, and we're playing at 15 times speed here at the moment. So he's able to pick off most of these before they even reach close to him. And then we start getting our first hits. And as we start to get hits, obviously they'll just keep on coming. And they don't do very much damage, these early ones either. So now we've shipped through enough armor that we're starting to damage his internals as well. Looks like we silenced one of his lasers there, and the second one is still firing. And then the second one went off, and there's nothing he can do now except take the punishment. And at this point we are just waiting. All of our ships are completely unharmed at this point. There might be a little bit of shipping damage on some of the armor on one of the ships. And now we're at the merge here. So we're still loading up, and we get a few more shots in once we're past the merge. And they're at this very weak sides, and these are the ones that usually kill him off. I've got a few more to come here, so this is a very slow way to actually kill them off. And he's still facing us. And sometimes you're obviously a little bit more lucky and destroy him a little bit earlier. But I found 6 ships does destroy this reliably. Okay, so let's see how the light rail cannon 3s match up then. And these are actually probably the most useful weapon in this slot, because you're able to get them when you're still actually using small ships, and they are very effective. So we're fighting with 2 of them. Remember, that's we needed 2 green arc laser ships to do the same thing. This is the light rail cannons, and they're about half of the, no, not even that. I think they're about a third of the RP investment to get these railguns compared to green arc lasers. And they do the same job. Not against this one at least. And you need 2 of them to actually overwhelm point defense. So if they actually have a proper point defense, you might need to have a 3rd or 4th one to actually break that through. You can see the slugs coming in so much tighter here now, and that's what makes this so much more efficient. And there we're starting to do damage, and they just keep loading these out. And they're bigger slugs as well, so every impact does more damage. So this is actually a really, really good weapon. And it takes quite a long time until you get something that is more efficient than this. And these aren't as dependent on how much armor the opponent has either. You just throw more slugs at something that has more armor, and you'll get through it eventually. With lasers, if you have enough armor, you won't actually do any damage. So swarms of these can actually do wonders. Okay, and now we're sitting on something a little bit more advanced. This is the light coil cannon, the 3rd variant, so the end of the line coil cannon. If you're going to use the small mount for anything later on in the game, this is the weapon you want to have on them. This is definitely the best in slot for this size of a ship. The lasers just don't have the power to get through armor. And you'll see very shortly exactly why. And they fire so many slugs, and the slugs are heavy. They do a lot of damage. And this is, but from the testing when we're just gliding forward, this is the fastest time to kill of them all. Actually, 10-inch cannons did manage to do it faster, but that's only because they burn in so fast. They lose out all of this travel time before. You can see here now that the firing, they are so tight, these coil slugs coming in. And obviously just double up with more of them. These cost exotics though, I think, so there's always the drawback of that. But they do outperform phasers on the size 1 slot. And there we go. They destroy it way before the merge. Okay, so let's bring up the table a little bit there again and just walk a little bit through it. So the advantage obviously of the kinetic weapons, the cannon, the railgun and the coilguns, is that they are upgradable. You can build your ships with the 10-inch cannon, you can then upgrade them to the railguns, and you might actually want to hold off and upgrade to the Railgun 3s, but I do think the Railgun 1s are better than the 10-inch cannon, just because the 10-inch cannon is so finicky to actually get to fire at your target. You really need to be heading straight towards them. If you're even a little bit off center, you'll only get like 2 or 3 shots off before the launch window is passed. So they are very, very finicky to use. I would take the light rail cannon any day on a ship. And then the coil cannon obviously is really good. Something to watch out for, of course, is that the light coil cannon 1 is actually worse than the rail cannon both, and then the third rail cannon. So you want to have go from rail 3 up to coil 2, and then you probably don't want to put coil 3s using exotics on something this small. But rail 3's 26,000 RP, that's a very good weapon, and that's what I would put on a ship this size. Now the lasers are viable, but you do need more ships just to punch through enough damage. And they do have the problem that they only deal damage at like 200 kilometers range, so if you're fighting more than one ship, it's not going to be a pretty sight. You're going to start taking way too much damage from them. Whereas the railguns still fire, they can do damage from quite a bit of a distance. They can actually start taking out, if you've got enough of them, they can start taking out ships earlier. Ion cannons and particle launchers not worth it on this size of a ship. You need so many ships just to be able to disable them. Obviously though, disabling a ship and just letting it float off into space means that they can't perform their mission, which against the surveillance destroyer means you're leaving them stranded. And probably a pretty good target for the AI to pick up instead. So that could be one use case for them. Might as well just use the ion cannons. The particle launchers is a little bit more RP for, and they do the same thing in about the same time. You just need a little bit more ships with the ion cannon. But I think those will probably be better on the larger ships, on destroyers or battle cruisers. As with all beam weapons, the size of the mirror is what makes the difference, and the 240 centimeter just isn't big enough to make a difference. You can see that the color of the beam doesn't really matter. The IR phasers do about the same work as the green and the UV phasers. The 2 of them are able to take out this destroyer, with one ship usually being very damaged. And it doesn't matter of the beam color, because they only do damage once they are very, very close. And as we use larger lasers, we're going to test the 480 centimeters ones next. We should see that the beams sort up a little bit more in color, because I think as the beams get larger, the color is actually better. But if you're only using these small ones, you would go straight up to arc lasers, and then you'd take up to UV arcs, bypassing or taking the green ones on the way, of course. But you don't want to use lasers on something this small. It's not really worth it. They've got too little range, and they take a lot of damage because they don't throw out anything that the enemy lasers can fire at, while the railgun and coilguns throw out lots of slugs that act as decoys. But yeah, that's going to be all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and tune in again in a little bit, and we'll have a video out for the two slot nose weapons as well for destroyers. But until that time, take care and see you later.